we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Stephanie Milner, and I'm a director on the NYU Stern Executive MBA program admissions team. Sorry about that. I'm coming up on my 15-year anniversary at Stern, and I've been a member of this team for my whole tenure. And my favorite part is meeting prospective students and helping guide them on the path towards their education journey. It's really interesting to meet all different kinds of people from all different kinds of industries and understand why they want an MBA. So we'll be doing a little bit of that tonight. I'm happy to be here tonight with some amazing women who are current students in the New York City and DC programs. I'm excited for them to give you their perspective on the experience and the value of the NYU Stern Executive MBA program tonight. Panel, our audience tonight is made up of prospective applicants and also some people who have started their application journey. So we're going to be giving them some perspective on what it's like from the inside of the program. Please note, everyone, that this session is being recorded. I'm going to moderate a discussion with our panel. We have some prepared questions. We got a few questions submitted ahead of time, but we will leave time at the end to make sure that the audience can get some of their questions answered. So you can feel free when anything comes to you to put it in the Q&A, and we will get to as many as we can at the end. Tonight will be more of a general information session. So if you have any specific questions about your own candidacy or your application in particular, this is probably not the best place to ask those, but you can feel free to reach out to our office directly to get those answers. But hopefully people have some other kinds of general questions about the student experience in the program tonight. So we'll try our best to answer as many questions, like I said, but we will be trying to wrap up on time just to be respectful of everybody's time this evening. So with that, I'm excited to have our panel introduce themselves. We're going to go around and have everyone, sorry, sounds of New York City right outside my window. I'm excited to have our panel introduce themselves, tell you about which executive MBA class and cohort that they're in, and a little bit about their current jobs. So Kim, we can start with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. My name's Kim Aguilo. I'm a senior director at ESPN in charge of media operations. And I am graduating in 3 short months with my fellow cohort member, Min, in August of 2025.
Awesome.
I'm going to hand over to Min, actually, just to keep the 25 love going.
Hi everyone, this is Min Seol. I am graduating with Kim. Currently, I'm working as an EVP of Global Sourcing and Production for Alex Apparel Group. And I am serving as a co-op board of the directors for profit and non-profit as well. That was a lot of the perk that I learned from, during an MBA. So the both jobs I added on to while I was in MBA program. I'm gonna pass that baton to Onu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wanu Owosheni. I am a member of the J26 class. I'm a digital marketing manager at the law firm of Anderson Kill. And with that, I'm happy to pass it over to TT.
TT, you're muted.
All right, thank you for passing it on. My name is Titi Fashina. I'm a part of the DC 26 cohort. I am a project manager, senior consultant with NTT Data, where I'm able to help a lot of different industries change their organization processes, or enhance it rather. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it back on to you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to start with another fairly easy question, just to give everyone a sense of, sorry about that, who's here. And why you came to Stern. So if we could all go around and maybe explain why it was the right time in your sort of personal and professional journey to pursue an executive MBA program, and briefly why you chose NYU Stern. So we can go around the same way. So Kim, we'll go back to you.
I actually started looking at MBA programs about 10 years ago. And at the time I was a manager, just had started at ESPN. And I felt like I could probably get more out of work in terms of the mentorship and the kind of life experiences, working on different stretch projects and things. So I put it to the side, and it was kind of something that I thought about kind of year in and year out. And I was like, I am getting a lot of momentum. I'm getting the recognition that I need. And at the senior director level at ESPN, that's when it starts to separate, where the next role up is the vice president role. And there's a lot of attrition that comes out where a lot of other folks start to look at other paths and look to pivot. And to be competitive, I felt that my MBA was something that was finally time to pursue. I had more sweat equity at work. I was managing a larger team, and getting the kind of business mechanics was really important for me to be eligible to make it into the C-suite. So that was my primary reason as why I thought the MBA program was appropriate for right here, right now. I did look at other schools, and for background, I actually commute from Washington, DC. I'm a military spouse and a working mom. I have a toddler who is 3 years old, who also keeps me very busy. And the reason why I chose the New York location was because my team that I manage is half based in Connecticut and half based in New York City. I work fully remote from DC. And being in person in New York gave me the ability to be in office twice a month, as well as that dedicated time for myself to be very focused in my studies. So when I'm here in New York, I'm fully in it. Like, I am here to focus on school, the networking, participate in the events and the programs, and I don't feel like I have to really make a choice because of splitting my time between home and work, because I've made the investment for myself to be fully present.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And Wanu, we'll jump to you.
Okay. So for me, I hit a point in my career where I started to consider what is next. And for me, that looked like, that was really navigating between doing a traditional master's degree and an executive MBA, or traditional MBA and executive MBA. And when I began to really look at what an executive MBA could offer me opposed to a regular MBA, I realized, one, that I don't feel that I have the luxury of being able to commit full time to the MBA program. I still needed to keep a job for myself. And then on top of that, in addition to that, I realized that NYU's program really had a lot of the little nuances that I was looking for. So whether it was the the global immersion, the global immersion experience.
It's okay. It all leads to the same place.
The global immersion experience, the types of people that I'd be interacting with within my cohort, and then the professors, the breadth of knowledge that our professors have. In addition to that, what really sold me was the curriculum. Looking at the curriculum and really weighing it against other programs, that was really what made me say that this was the right move for me. The executive MBA was the right move for me. The NYU's executive MBA specifically was exactly what I needed at the time that I needed it, especially because I knew that I didn't want to, I know what my bandwidth looks like. I know what my time looks like. And for me, the Friday, Saturday is exactly what I need. The Friday, Saturday was perfect for me. And everything was just really working out the way I needed it to work out at the time I was applying.
Great. And Min?
Yes, I am a little bit more older age group in then, the typically a lot of there are 30s and 40s and mid 50s. And I was thinking about when my younger one was finishing the master's program, and I said, like, it's my turn. And also another reason was, I only have a fashion design background as far as the education wise. And if I want to go anything further, like MBA was a must. Like, actually, I worked really hard without MBA degree getting into where I am. Probably, that's why I think the Kim is the perfect situation. If anyone can afford to start early, they should start early as possible. Then probably they can jump the career a lot faster. But because I couldn't do it with the 2 kids and a lot of the traveling, like all those, So what I learned during this, MBA, not only you don't have to finish the MBA while you are in school, doors are opening immediately. The minute, I spread out, okay, like I studied the EMBA and I got a couple of offers and it turned out to be the, job title that I wanted, the C-suite. But I learned that actually I get paid more and stay with my specialty, which is right now is the global sourcing is one of the hottest topic. So then I lean into the school. Actually, the NYU has an amazing, counselors and all those, and the medicine. And she said, like, why don't you just go skip the C-level and just knock on the door? So she actually helped a lot to get over my fear. So I got onto the board seat during a school. So the MBA for me is like, if I want to stay work a little bit longer, I'm not going to retire at late 50s like a couple of my friends, then I think the MBA is the only answer that what I needed. Yeah. So I am
Makes
like
sense.
super appreciative the whole program. Yeah.
Great. That totally makes sense. And TT, what about you?
Well, I have a few reasons on why I decided to get my MBA and specifically at NYU. Being the fact that NYU is a very prestigious school, they have an amazing network. I also had the privilege of having a friend who also did the same exact program in DC, who doesn't live too far from me. He expressed how much it has helped him in his career. So it kind of like encouraged me to like, just at least apply to see like what the next steps could be for me as well. I also have a very great relationship with my current company. I was able to talk and have a conversation with the CEO, and I asked him what his thoughts were. And he was full on board. He encouraged it. He told me that the schedule wasn't going to really interfere with what I have going on at work. So he said that it's something that I should definitely strongly consider, being the fact that I get a lot of good feedback from my clients. So that was one reason. Another reason is that I'm at a really pretty good sweet spot right now in my life where I don't have a child and I'm not married. So before that happened, I said, you know what, let me just try to get myself, a master's and be able to propel my career the way I want to before those life events happen. My current role as a senior consultant wasn't supposed to be as long as I've held that position. So I felt like I kind of did come to a place where I kind of plateaued a little bit, and it was time for me to make a change in my academic career and for me to pivot into not necessarily a fully different role, but like a higher position. I've been approached with a lot of leadership roles, and I didn't really want to just take it so fast because I wanted to make sure that I was actually ready to take the rigors of that new position. And so far, just me kind of being a couple months in my program, I feel like I have propelled in so many different ways. I'm able to really utilize the things that I have learned so far with my cohort, with my study groups, and use them in my current role, which is allowing me to get some offers. So just like Min said, these things and opportunities happen while you're in the program. It doesn't necessarily mean that once you graduate, these things will happen. It actually starts happening immediately. So that's my
So I think that's actually a really good point. And it was a question I was going to ask later, but it's a great segue to sort of saying, for Kim and Min, who are, a bit further along in the program, and Wanu and Titi, who are still sort of more at the beginning stages of the program, Titi, and you sort of just made this point, so we'll go back to you for this. Just sort of, can you give an example of, sort of like that aha moment where in terms of, being at school and then going back to work on Monday, where you're like, oh, I can do this better. Oh, I have a toolkit for this that maybe you didn't have before, that sort of real-time application of skills.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that this program has taught me is balancing your schedule. Class weekends are long, and opposed to the the cohort in the New York City, as opposed to DC, I would say that we have classes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those
Once
weekends
a month,
are,
right? Once a month.
yeah, once a month. Not twice a month, but once a month you have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you have to really be able to gather those deliverables because we get a lot. the fact that we only meet once a month, we get things piled up on us. So you kind of have to make sure that you are able to schedule yourself and organize yourself in a way where you get things done ahead of time. That's kind of my mechanism. I get things done ahead of time. I jump in. I haven't been in school in like I want to say maybe 10 years. So it was a really hard transition for me to kind of go from just like working full time, then working full time and also being in school. But once you get the hang of it, you have support from your professors, you have support from your cohort. Everyone is kind of like in similar boats. That's why you're in the executive program. So it's like you kind of lean onto each other. But I will say my best advice is to definitely make sure that you're able to balance out your personal life, and then that way your academic life fits right in.
That makes sense. And is there anything happened at work? Oh, and Min, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, actually, I want to add the aha moment.
Yeah.
It was my first semester, right after the accounting class. I thought I was pretty good at numbers in like all of the negotiation, but the accounting taught me it's almost like accounting is a separate language, and then how they approach all the staffs. So the biggest aha moment was usually I have a little bit of the negative approach of when my CFO and I have a different view. The communication was a little bit, there has some tension when we prepare the board deck. And after that accounting class, I was able to 100%, lead him. And when he make a mistake, and actually I was able to pointing it out. And now we have a great relationship because I can speak his language.
Yeah.
That was the biggest aha moment. Yeah.
And Wanu or Kim, did you want to share anything like that?
Yeah. So my aha moment was actually, I think this was one of our marketing classes, and it was either a marketing class or we had a guest lecture. I can't recall. But the guest lecturer was, it was a guest lecturer. Guest lecturer was sharing their experience with something in a platform that they were using. And literally while they were speaking, I was taking a screenshot of taking a photo of the slide on the screen, and I was texting my CMO because I report directly to him. And I was like, why aren't we utilizing this process? How can we streamline X, Y, and Z and utilize this by implementing that? And he was like, literally while this class is going on, excuse me, while the class was going on. And for me, that was like, this is why I'm here, to gain the tools and resources I didn't have before, and to be able to ask questions boldly, to challenge the practices that we currently have, challenge the current infrastructure of our marketing department, and to see how I can move things forward.
Love that
Awesome.
real-time optimization.
That's seriously real time. That's as it's happening in real time. That's not waiting till Monday.
So after my first year in the program, my media team was actually reorged. So I had been working in media strategy and planning for about 10 years or I guess nine years at ESPN. And I was reorged into my current role as media operations. I inherited 3 distinct teams. So one was a team that was very well tenured. All of their experience combined is over 125 years. Another portion that was net new to me and a language that I did not understand at all, very technical. And then a third group that was net new that I inherited and had to bring together kind of their expertise, frame it into a vision and say, this is what we're going to go after and chase and make into reality, and then make all 3 teams cohesive. So I came to Stern for the finance background, just being in New York City. What I was really surprised to get between years 1 and 2 specifically was the leadership capabilities. Being able to succinctly write a vision that you could say over and over and over again that people would immediately understand, whether you were 2 years out of college or had been working for over 25 years. Being able to use the right language for everyone to understand what my personal values were, and then how that embodied into our group's values and how we work and the pace that we work. And then also to drive really alignment and consensus with people who didn't really understand what our function was, and then how to work through kind of conflict and tension and really drive deeper collaboration. So I've now been in my new role for about a year, and to say that we are a completely 180 team from where we were a year ago is a huge testament to the management and the leadership classes that I've taken at Stern, and being able to structure, this is what our values are, this is how they speak, this is how we act on them, this is what they aren't, and then this is the type of behavior that gets rewarded, and how we all cohesively do our own individual part, and how it creates a bigger kind of sum than as a whole than our individual components. So that's something that I was able to enact within the year while still going to school, and we're not done yet, so more to come.
You can keep going. I mean, and in sort of in the spirit of that, as we're talking about things learned in the classroom, I'd love to talk for a few minutes about the faculty and sort of the classroom experience, and maybe relationships you've developed with faculty, and just sort of the general experience in the classroom, with the understanding that every class is a little bit different depending on the format and the content and the professor. But in general, what are the experiences, what's the overall experience you've had in the classroom, and maybe any relationships you've developed with the faculty. So I think we'll kick off with Min representing New York a little bit, and then we'll let Titi give the experience from DC.
Yeah, professor that I actually love is Julian Yor. It's my accounting professor, and the way he teach is the accounting is the very typical language. I don't have any finance background, so for me it was like if I can fully understand the accounting, probably I will gain of the almost quarter of the why I was in school, because it's a lot of them are finance driven. So I really paid a lot of attention, but the way he was teaching was like just 10 minutes with him makes you calm down. And the teaching method is it's almost like a building a block. 1, 2, 3, 4. So everyone was able to follow through. So the combination of the typical subject and his teaching method was, it was like aha moment. And I even took the extra class with him on how to dissect the 10K. That was not, it remotely not possible before I even joined this school, because like, how can I read a 10K? But because of the way he was teaching, it's a very difficult finance language and complex one, he's able to dissect. And I want to acquire that kind of skill set. So I took extra long night classes on him. Yes, financial analysis. So he is definitely my favorite. Yeah. And
Titi, what's
yeah.
Oh, sorry. And
Yes,
Titi,
ma'am.
what's your classroom experience like in DC?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But and it's hard for me to pick one professor, because there's so many like professors that are so passionate about what they do and how they teach. I think that Min and I are going to speak about the same professor in accounting. He's very popular. I'm sure that the next cohort coming in is going to probably have him. He is great. I came into the EMBA program frightened for the core classes, because I'm not really a quant heavy person. Again, I'm more so into management, leadership, strategy. So I was really like intimidated when I first started, but these professors are very big on making sure that not only are they teaching the material, but that you actually understand the material as well. So coming out of accounting, I'm able to now read a balance sheet, an income statement. I'm known now to even look at the footnotes even before I look at anything, because that was something that was very big on just getting reiterated from the professor alone. The exam was at first intimidating when he first talked about it and what was going to be on it. But then when I went through, I'm like, wow, I really was able to take the time within these 3 months, knock it out, understand it, and do very well out of the class. So then the other quant courses weren't as bad for me. Another professor that I'm sure you guys are going to love is the micro econ professor. He's also the dean of executive program, and he's just great at what he does. He applies everything to real life experiences. Like now when it comes to like businesses, I'm always thinking about, the perfect competition. I'm starting to think about the terms that were taught to us. So I would say those are probably like my best classroom experiences, because there were classes that I had no interest in at all that made me even more interested in the long run. So
Thank you. And sort of continuing on, just talking about sort of classroom experience and schoolwork, Manu, what would you say in terms of, how much time you dedicate outside of class weekends to work?
I would say it depends on the class. So first year, we're taking a lot more of our quant classes. So that required a lot more time, a lot more energy, especially if you decide to take the review sessions for accounting or stats or any of the quant classes, which I recommend if you are not that great or quantitative analysis is not really your thing. Yeah, I think I spent roughly maybe 6 hours a week, just ensuring that I understood the material, reviewing the recorded lectures. I think that one of the greatest benefits is having the sessions recorded your first year. That allowed me to really spend time to go back and replay those accounting classes where I couldn't understand the equations or which equation to use at what point. I think that was such a great added benefit. Like, I didn't realize before we started that they were all going to be recorded, and just having that was an arsenal that I just couldn't afford to not have.
Great, thank you. And Kim, same question as you've sort of gone through into year two, how much time would you say now that you're sort of more into electives and it's sort of a different flow of classes?
I would recall it back to what TV said at the beginning, where it's like you have to kind of set your own schedule and understand what your boundaries are and get really organized. For me, because I have a small child, I'm working and also going to school, I also kind of put a cap on how much time I could dedicate to things. And there were times where, I definitely wanted to spend more time studying finance or accounting, but the hours just necessarily weren't there. So what I've set up for myself is that this experience has really given me the permission to say, work stops officially at 5:30. I was definitely one of those people who would come on after dinner, kind of tinker around on things that I was working on, and before you know it, I'd be working an additional 4 hours a night for work. But now work stops at 5:30. My family time is from 5:30 to 8:30. I put my daughter to bed by 9, and I'm doing school related things from 9 to midnight, at least 5 to 6 days a week. And that can kind of grow if you're doing group projects or if you're doing what Min had alluded to, which was taking additional Langone classes at night. And then there are times too where, for instance, both Manu and I have marketing background. So the marketing stuff came a little bit easier to us.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to dedicate as many hours because you were fluent in that language versus other things, especially in your second year classes, you're taking elective classes. A lot of the concepts start to collide. So you're looking at, like right now I'm taking sustainability for competitive advantage, which is a strategy class. So I'm looking at financial statements. I'm doing research on companies. I'm thinking about how their comm structure is. I'm thinking about what their financial technical implications are. So there's some modeling there as well. So that one is taking a few more hours than I would say marketing was, just because now you're getting into a layered class where there's just more to look at and more to analyze and consider. But it's also about having a healthy balance. So at midnight, I close my laptop and I'm like, what's done is done, and the rest is for another time.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, I think that's a really good point about sort of the work ebbing and flowing. And I think that happens throughout the program, that sometimes you might feel like you're sort of drowning and sometimes you might feel like you have some more bandwidth. And I think, it's the same with work. It's happens that way sometimes. And I also just wanted to clarify that Langone is the part-time program, which is another way to achieve an MBA at Stern. They offer classes on nights and or weekends, and sometimes executive MBA students can take classes if they want to sub that in for an elective sometimes, or just add in a course to get additional knowledge in a certain subject area. So that's sort of on a case-by-case basis, but I just wanted to clarify that so everybody who's watching understood what we were talking about. So we've talked a bit about curriculum in the classroom. And I guess the last thing, but I do want to get into talking more about the cohort and sort of the relationships in the program. But if anyone wants to jump in and talk a little bit about their global immersion experience, Wanu, I know you mentioned that, and it's part of the core requirement for the program. And just to give a quick summary of, I guess, where your class has been or is going and sort of how you feel like it enhanced your experience in the program, sort of having an experience in another global market.
Absolutely. So for all of you to know, every cohort has a mandatory group location that they go to. So for my cohort J26, we went to Japan. That was our collective group global experience. And that's all in your first year. And that was honestly one of the best experiences that we could have had, especially in your first year. You're with a group of people that you've never met before, and you're experiencing things that you've never experienced before. And the not just experiencing a different culture, but you're also experiencing businesses in that culture and really adopting the mindset of a global citizen. What does it mean to have a global business or have a business in another country, in another region? It really opened my eyes to adopt the mindset of the people that were there and realize that just because we're in America and the practices that we have work doesn't mean that that's going to work everywhere that you go. So depending on what kind of business you operate in, you really do need to understand understand what it means to have global borders within your country and the various practices that may change from region to region. The global immersion experience specifically it was really great. So I went to Japan first year, and as part of our, I guess technically second year, I went to Brazil in January. So I've had the pleasure of doing 2 GIEs, and they were both very different, but both very amazing. The being able to speak with the business leaders, see how they're operating their businesses, and really just be really deep in it with them was just amazing, an amazing experience that I wouldn't have changed for the world.
Amazing. Thank you. So, and you mentioned about sort of hitting the road with your cohort and getting to know people better. So from an admissions standpoint, we always try to bring together students with a range of personal and professional experiences to really create a vibrant learning community within each cohort. So I guess maybe we could go around, or Kim and Min, if you want to sort of split it because you're in the same cohort. But basically, can you just tell us a little bit about your cohort and relationships that you've developed and sort of what you've gained from the mix of, I guess, backgrounds and functions and industries that are represented in the classroom?
Our cohort is very, very diverse, not only the age and then all the industry. So the first year when we were all together, we really, really had a fun. In any class you're jumping into, there are few experts, and then few of them has no idea. So it was a really great mixture of the hearing their opinions from who are the outside of the industry versus who are actually inside of the industry. And also when you hear, we have a lot of high debate about, what Gen Z thinks, because we have the Gen Z, also what millennial thinks and what like older people think. It was very eye-opening. So I could understand of everybody's view, and that helped me too when I come back to my office, because we have a lot of young ones too here, and I'm looking at their very different mindset. And I think one of the appreciation for the school is somehow you guys figured it out how to put the study group together in first year. My study group, we had one finance expert and we had one marketing person. So out of the 5 people, everyone had a different strengths. So how we get through the 1 year, I was really a lot leaning on to as my study group. And the first year study groups, you're not choosing your study group. Actually, the school selects for you, but there are a lot of those behind. So you have to just get to know your study group, and everyone has a really good strengths. And each classroom, when you go, just sit next to your study group person who are the expert, and you can learn so much, not only from the professor, from your cohort.
Yeah, and we definitely try. The admissions team is very involved with putting together the study groups because we've met everybody as part of the process because the interview is required. So we've met everybody, we understand everybody's background, and the goal is to create, really cross-functional teams for exactly the reason that Min provided. So that I'm glad it worked out in practice because that's what we always try and do in theory. TT, do you want to talk about your cohort a little bit, and then we'll go back to Wanu and Kim?
Yeah, my cohort is pretty diverse as well. I will say that I feel like the executive program really handpicked our cohort because we mesh literally since day one. We were actually kind of sad after our residency because we weren't going to see each other until like a whole month. And when we saw each other, it was like we didn't miss a beat. So we're pretty close knit already. We didn't go on our GIE experience just yet. We're actually going tomorrow. It's also Saturday. Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to Dubai. So I'm super excited for that. But our cohort is pretty good. My study group is pretty good. There's a lot of veterans. I mean, this shouldn't come to a surprise as we are in the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of veterans there. We also have a lot of people who are already in leadership. We have a lot of vice presidents. We have some people who are global partners. We have people who are still trying to figure out what their path is. And then we also have a lot of people in finance as well. So it's good because it's like Min said, I can't say it any better. We're able to identify each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of pick each other up where we lack and also provide where we're strong at. So I would say that diversity that was handpicked by the executive team, the executive MBA team is pretty great. Whatever strategy you guys are using, keep it up because it works pretty.
Thanks for the shout out. That's great. We'll take it. Wanu, what about you? You want to talk about your cohort a little bit?
Yes. So I have to say this. I love my cohort. I think my cohort's the best cohort. And to TT's point, from day one for us, from our residency, we clicked immediately. And it's worth noting that we are one of the smaller cohorts. There are only roughly 40 of us in my cohort, which is not traditional. I believe they're normally around 60 people per cohort, in New York at least. So our cohort is definitely on the smaller side, but for us, we've been very close knit from the beginning. And it's interesting because when I first joined, I was under the assumption that everyone knew exactly what they wanted to be when they grew up. I was under the assumption that everyone, was on their career path. They knew their trajectory. They were just go-getters. They were going in with a mission and a plan, and that was it. But then I realized after being there are people there like me. So I'm in a place where I'm looking to pivot. I don't know where to, but I'm open to the idea of pivoting industries. And the fact that I realized that there were other people just like me trying to figure it out, that was one of the greatest feelings. Like, okay, I am not alone. There are a myriad of different types of people in my cohort, and we're all coming to the same place to bring our minds together and to work to obtain this degree, obtain the learning that we're looking for. And we have VPs, we have presidents, we have founders and executive directors on our team, in our cohort. We have startup owners and small business owners, and we have people in marketing like me, and the lawyers and doctors. And to see the diversity in the cohort is just so amazing. I've just found that it's, if anything, enriched my experience because we're literally all pulling from different pools and pouring into the same place where we're able to fill each other up in a way that we wouldn't have if we were in a different program, if we were siloed or just by ourselves, or gaining a singular type of experience where we're just in it by ourselves. So for me, it has been a great experience, and I love my cohort.
And Kim, did you want to add anything else about A25?
No. Everything was said. Love. Good
Perfect.
job, ladies.
Perfect. So, we got a couple of questions leading into this tonight. And I guess one of them was just around any concerns people had about joining the program ahead of time. I mean, some people mentioned sort of quantitative preparedness, but I think that's sort of been addressed. So sort of that aside, I mean, Kim, we can start with you. I mean, were there any concerns, besides sort of, I guess, the obvious time management, you have a family, et cetera. But were there any just in terms of getting back into a classroom, um, after however many years it was?
I would say that the first term, just give yourself a lot of grace. A lot of us haven't, I mean, the nature of the executive program is that you have at least 8 years work experience. So I'd assume you've been
Six.
at
Six.
school 6, so at least 6 years out of school. So it's going to take some time to figure out kind of what your rhythm is, relearn or understand how you learn now. Because how I learned today is very different from how I learned as an undergrad. And I think it was just a really great experience too, in terms of just honing in on your own self-awareness. It's how do I personally define success versus what do I actually need to do to be successful? Those are two separate things as a recovering perfectionist. And then also your first term, I think, is just keeps you really humble. We have since optimized out of accounting being the first class that you take. So it's an easier launch into your EMBA experience, but it also kind of unveiled things where it's like, well, what am I trying to get out of this? Am I trying to become a CPA tomorrow? Probably not. So yes, grades don't matter. You don't need to PD or pass with distinction in every class. A high pass or a pass is just fine. And I think that for me was something I realized very early on that helped me set myself up for success, where it's like, what am I here for? The finance stuff, I'm definitely leaning in, making sure that I'm reviewing as much as possible. I'm already in marketing. Don't need to learn more marketing because that's not my personal goal.
Great, thank you. And did anyone else have any particular concerns ahead of that, or considerations before they joined a program like this? Maybe it was with your company or, just the idea of getting back in the classroom. I think Min addressed that a little bit earlier. It was it was a while since she had jumped back into a class, but I guess were there any other, professional concerns about being back in school while you were working?
Yeah, for me, because of my job, I have quite a lot of travel, and it was a little bit concern. Like, first of all, I have to, sync with the schedule. So the minute I joined, I asked them a year schedule, and school was already have a full year set of schedule, so that helped me. And another thing was, first full year, the entire class was fully recorded. So even though I missed the classes, that I can actually keep up. And a lot of the professors were very open to it. And some professors will ask you, okay, I want to make sure that you watch the video and just send me the quick memo. But no one said, or no one was not even close to giving a hard time. Everyone was so much supportive. So I think the EMBA able to access of the video recording around the world, it doesn't matter where you are, so you can actually keep up your work and then keep up your school.
Makes sense. So I do want to get to some of the questions that we have from some of our viewers, but really quickly, I do want to go around and I'll ask this of everybody, and maybe we'll kick it off with Wanu, not to put you on the spot, but what would you say has been the highlight of the program for you so far?
The people.
Okay.
I'd say the people that I've met along the way, and I say people generally because I mean both my cohort members, but also professors, because there's some professors that I've adopted as mentors, because they were just that impactful during class that I've taken it from that class relationship to offline my professional growth relationship.
And TT, you want to go next?
Yeah, I love what Awani said. It's pretty much the same thing. I would say that like outside of the people, because I would say I've met like some of my closest friends in the cohort, but also just like it just rebuilding your confidence on who you are, what you came there to do, changing a lot of things mentally about where you want to go. I think that the program has really helped me really understand what's next. And I won't ever take that for granted. I think that without the program, I still would have kind of been in flux with like where my career is going. So I would say that's probably like my favorite thing is that I was able to gain clarity. So.
And Kim, what about you?
Those are two hard answers to beat.
No pressure.
I'm gonna go back to the GIEs. Min and I went to Cape Town, South Africa for our first year GIE, and it was a really big culture shock in terms of how their political system is, how business is affected. They go through load shedding where there's just spurts, long hours of the day where there's no electricity. So business essentially halts and their political system is a little corrupt. So that makes it difficult to figure out business strategy as well. And just seeing how resilient the South African people are and just how creative they are in terms of finding solutions for their growing and super young population and how that translates into what they may require of NGOs that come in, how they find ways to swerve around load shedding and work through privatization to avoid working with the government. That it gave me a new lens in terms of how I want to do my own personal travel moving forward. Like it's not just I'm going to go to this place and it's super beautiful and it's Instagrammy and we eat at high-end restaurants, but starting to look at the ethical and sustainable implications of my actions and how I kind of vote with my dollar in that way, where it's like, I want more of this, so I'm going to spend my money that way. And I think moving forward, anytime I go, especially internationally, I'm going to I'm going to travel with a GIE lens.
Very cool. Very cool. So we have a couple of questions. So one of them actually, TT, you were mentioning two professors, and I don't think you said the name of the second one, and someone wanted to know who you were talking about.
Okay.
So I think the first one you were talking about was Professor Yo for accounting, and I'm not sure who the second one was. I think you mentioned they were marketing, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the first one was actually Professor Bartov.
Oh, Bartov. Okay. So it
Yeah,
was Professor Eli Bartov. Okay.
for accounting. And then for microeconomics, it was Mahir Saeed.
Oh, right. So Mahir Saeed is the academic director for the executive MBA program. So he actually does teach. So yeah, so that's great. So his role as academic director is really, sort of work with all the faculty and understand all the syllabi and how all the curriculum for all across the executive MBA program from the core and the electives is sort of creating, the experience and meeting the academic requirements for all our students. Yeah, so it's great that you got to be in a classroom. He's got a great vibe. he's very cool to be around. Great. Someone was asking about the alumni network experience and is it at all different between New York and DC? So I think we can talk about both if anyone's had any, TD, if you've had any, experience with the alumni network in DC. I'm not 100% sure what this person means by this question, unfortunately, but if anyone's had experience with, networking in general, I guess, or the alumni network or anything like that.
Yeah, so across the board, you meet a lot of cool people. I actually frequent New York a lot, so I try to take advantage of the campus and like the alumni there as well and the events that they have in New York. But in DC, they do have like a lot of networking events where they kind of have on campus. So a lot of people from like, previous cohorts, they come, they join, they talk about their experiences, they talk about what they're doing now, where they started. So it's good to connect with them. Sometimes you don't really have to even connect with them in person. They have on the Stern website, there's a lot of resources where you can connect with alumni and also on LinkedIn. I'm not someone who is shy to reach out to people who I don't know on LinkedIn or regarding the Stern network, I reach out to people if I feel like they not only can be a benefit, but someone who I just want to gain relationships with because I think that their background is super cool. Personally, I do have a friend who did go to the who did graduate. I think he was DC class of 2022. and he really enjoyed it. He's one of the people who actually really persuaded me to apply and move forward. But I would say that the alumni network in general from both from New York and DC is pretty strong.
I was gonna say it's not a different alumni network. It's all one NYU
All one.
network.
Yep.
And oftentimes, TT, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person yet, but there are weekends throughout the year where the DC cohort will actually come up to New York and we're all taking classes together. So there is cross-pollination there. And then also the EMBA admin also do networking roulette once a month. So they pair you with current students as well as alumni students who have flagged and said that they want to participate. So it's completely self-service, but they pair you with someone and you're able to, it's a nice way to be like, hey, if I'm not as confident as TT and I need a little bit of an introduction, then that's a nice way to kind of springboard too. But fun fact is that I live in DC and I was going to the doctor's office and I went to this poke place that was right underneath in their little area. And the business owner was an NYU alum. So she was a Stern alum and she was wearing the t-shirt. And I was like, hi, I just want to introduce myself. Like, I'm a current student. And like, we had a whole thing. So now you just never know where you're going to meet them.
That's so great. Yeah. And Kim, thank you for making that point that it really is one network. You know, NYU's executive MBA students in DC are fully blown students the same way that NYU Stern executive MBA students are. They're not on campus every day, like certainly not like undergraduate students or even full-time MBA students are, but they, you know, generally are can avail themselves of all the same resources, you know, and everyone becomes part of the greater alumni network. So, and some things are sort of done locally. That's how all alumni groups function, that sometimes they'll have things in DC or in New York and people who are there will come, but they do things all over the country and actually all over the world. And some things are just done hybrid so that people connect in that way. So it is definitely part of a big group. So there's over 110,000 Stern alumni globally, and that's a subset of the over 500,000 NYU alumni, because obviously Stern is part of NYU as well. So it's pretty expansive.
I want to add into also the as a NYU EMBA student, you can join in the pen club, which is the pen club and NYU, they share the resource of the all international. So if you're planning to travel, you know, actually you can reach out through the pen club of that. And when I went to one of the Vietnam, and I used through the pen club, and I was able to book the private golf course, and I was buddied with the NYU graduate person. So you never know where you're gonna meet the NYU graduate person around the world.
That's right. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I just want to address this question really quickly. Someone asked about considering a PhD instead of an executive MBA, and I'm actually going to answer that because at Stern, at least, a PhD is a very different track than an MBA. It requires a lot of very specific coursework and it builds off a master's degree, and it's a totally different path, where this is like a 2-year clearly defined graduate degree. So some people may have considered that path, but it's definitely more of an academic, not that this isn't, but this is sort of a 2-year graduate business focused degree. And a PhD is usually very specific in an area of study. So they're not really apples to apples. So we don't overlap, at least not at Stern, where executive MBA students or even MBA students potentially interact with PhD students unless they're serving as a TA or something like that. But that's usually not the case at Stern. So I just wanted to address that. And there's an interesting question, and then we'll sort of, and this will be the last one, that someone was mentioning that they've been a practicing physician for 27 years. And, you know, how would the NYU Stern Executive MBA program help them transition into the business aspect of the healthcare sector? And that's super specific. And I know it doesn't apply to anyone here particularly, but I think it's an interesting perspective on how you might be able, you know, based on what you've learned in the executive MBA, to maybe, one of the things I like to tell people in admissions is that it's not necessarily your golden ticket to do something when you get an MBA, but it's a great addition to your toolkit where you take your previous work experience and all this new knowledge and sort of maybe potentially do something different with yourself and apply in a different way. So I feel like that's a great question to end on, just in terms of looking forward and what directions you might want to go in. And Min wants to answer, so go ahead.
I can add into, I actually took a elective as a business of healthcare, and there were 3 doctors who were in EMBA. And yes, it was and they were, one of them are in our cohort, and then 2 of them are actually, they are the, full-time physician, and they are getting an MBA. And everyone has a little bit different, the reason to joining, but being a doctor and coming into EMBA is not, it's not something new.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I do think that, just based on my experience of having seen so many people come through the program, that, people like doctors or people who studied health, or even engineers, and people who had a very specific coursework in undergrad, or someone like Min, for example, who was very specific in studying fashion and things like that. Like, you don't really get to study a broad range of things a lot of the time. So it's a great opportunity to come back to school and sort of formally learn things that you've probably learned on the job over the years, but you maybe didn't study specifically before. And I think that's a lot of what the Executive MBA program helps to do. So I do want to be aware of the time. We're just at 7 o'clock. I will certainly give anyone else on the panel any last words if they want to share anything that maybe you wanted to talk about or didn't get a chance to, or any final words.
I was going to say that pursuing an MBA was something that I had kicked around for a long time. And I think, especially now, it's one of those things where 2 years is going to pass regardless if you choose to do something with it or not. So get that application in if you haven't already, because it's time. It's time to do it.
I think that's the perfect end note. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, everyone who tuned in tonight. If you have any additional questions or would like additional information, please feel free to reach out to our office. All our contact information is on our website. I want to thank our fantastic panel tonight. Thank you so much for making the time and sharing your experience with the panel, with the audience here tonight. And everyone, have a great evening. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.